let's just go ahead and get Ricky behind us, shall we? Go easy on this one. Have mercy on me.
Well, you know. All right. Okay. Preach.
Preach.
No, we got another dungy doing that. You know what? You know what, Dr. Hyles?
What, Ricky?
I have. You know, this week I felt like I've been abused.
Abused?
Abused, yeah.
I heard what he said.
I do, and you know what? When I was talking to God today, I said, God, what can you do when we need help? and you know what? God gives us angels to watch over us. Amen?
Boy, you know that Bible, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
Yeah, King James, I read it. Oh, by the way, you hit another home run last night.
Thank you.
You did. That'll last me another 6 years.
Well, I keep thinking I'm getting nagged at a little bit here.
But I know I kind of gave you a hard time, but you gave me a worser time than I did.
Yeah, but you got paid for getting a hard time. I didn't.
Well, you're going to get it in the end.
Now, there you go, being like David Gibbs now.
I mean in heaven.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that'll be the end when you get to heaven.
No, that's the beginning.
Yeah, you're right. You're smarter than you look. But you know what, Dr. Hyles? Where's he going? I asked God to help me, and so that you don't give me a hard time, I got my angel here today.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, angel. Come on. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Yeah. I dare you. I dare you. I double dare you to mess with me today.
Good morning, Ricky, and how are you this morning? I trust things are well with you. We are just giving you a little extra love offering this morning. And,
you know,
and
but
give my best to Geraldine. Tell her what a wonderful lady she is.
Oh, you're doing good. Keep it up. I'm going to give your check back. You know what? But
I
you
tell
know
you what, that's one of the fallen angels right there.
No. Getting Wilbur.
Oh.
I don't think this is fair, Ricky.
What?
Well, I don't think it's fair for you to have your angel and Dr. Hyles. I don't see his
I certainly
his
think
angel.
that's right.
You want an angel?
Yes, I certainly do.
All right. I asked God about that, and God let me pick of the litter, and I got you one,
Well,
too.
wonderful.
Oh, where's Dr. Hyles'
Where's my
angel?
Yeah, here he comes. Come on, Kiwi.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, do you feel good?
I feel worse than I did a while ago. I believe I take care by myself better.
Well, now we're all set. I got my angel, and you got yours.
Yeah.
And I'm ready. I'm ready now.
God bless you both.
I gotta tell you, you know what happened the other day.
No.
Did Miss McKinney, your secretary, did she tell you about that rich Texan that called?
No.
Yeah, he did. He called the church the other day.
I see.
And you know, he's a real hillbilly.
Uh-huh.
And he called the church and he said, I want to talk to the chief hog of the trough.
Chief hog of the trough?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, and Miss McKinney said, excuse me? He said, I want to talk to the chief hog of the trough. Miss McKinney said, sir, I'm sorry. We have a lot of respect for our pastor, and we never, ever refer to him in that manner.
That's right.
And he apologized. He said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I just had $10,000 here that I wanted to give to Hyles Anderson College. She said, hold on, the big pig is coming now.
Suey, suey, suey.
I love it. I've been wanting to get that out all week. Oh, I love you.
Sure, sure.
I'm not kidding, Doc. I love you. You're the greatest, and you know what?
Sure.
I mean it. I'd do anything in the world for you.
Yeah, I understand that.
He really
Yeah,
would.
I bet he would. I bet he would.
And you know what? I asked Miss Hyles, how come she married you?
Oh, why did Miss Hyles marry Dr.
Well,
Hyles?
it's obvious, don't you think?
Not now. Was then. But she said it wasn't because of your good look.
No, it wasn't because of Dr. Hyles' good
We
looks.
heard what he said.
Yeah, but she didn't. And she didn't marry you because of your money.
Oh, because of his money.
He didn't have any.
We did.
And it's getting worse.
So are the looks.
Why did Mrs. Hyles marry Dr. Hyles?
Oh, because of his brain.
Oh, because of your brains.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the little things in life that count. Woo, got him again.
Yeah. Brother Hyles, I love you.
I really do.
Yeah,
I wouldn't tease you if I didn't love you.
Sure.
I'm not kidding. Did you hear about that couple that had been married 75 years?
No.
And they were going to get a divorce?
A divorce. It's habit. I just want.
Yeah, I trained her to do that.
Oh, I see.
And anyhow, that been married 75 years, and they were going to get a divorce.
Well, why?
Yeah. Well, they were going to wait until all the kids were dead, though.
Oh.
You
win some and lose some, don't you?
Boy, that one hit, didn't it?
This is Friday. I know how you feel. I had to preach to them last night.
I'm getting a little bit tired.
Are you really?
Are you? You know, when we start looking like our picture on the driver's license, it's time to go home. This crowd is looking pretty sick and worn out. Do you know Keith Gomez?
Oh,
I
Brother
don't like to
Gomez.
say it.
Yeah.
I don't like to say it in public, but
Is he here?
I
Keith
don't know.
Gomez?
Is Brother Gomez here?
he's been here.
Where is he?
I talked to his wife. I met her.
You met it?
Oh.
Good.
Yeah, and she has a nervous condition.
A nervous condition.
Yeah, she wakes up every morning with a jerk. No, no.
No. Oh, no.
That's what she's saying.
No, no.
Well, good anyhow. I had a good week. And I enjoyed everything.
Do you know what? One thing that is amazing,
What?
as little sleep as these folks get all week, how alert they are. Really,
Oh,
I mean
know,
that.
Yeah.
It's
In the
amazing.
mornings.
Right.
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 I know it, 'cause it's hard for me to get going.
Is it really?
Yeah, it takes a while. You got to jump start to get going, amen?
You got a jump start all the time, don't you?
Well, but you know what, Dr. Hyles, really, I hope you know how much I love and appreciate you.
It's obvious, all the things you said this week.
Well, I gave you a hard time 'cause I love you.
Sure, you really...
'Cause you know what? I even had a dream about you.
Did you really?
Yes, sir.
What'd you dream?
I dreamed you went to heaven.
Oh, wait, by the way, did you bring it?
Yes, in there.
Ricky wrote you a little, he wants you to read this is about you, your first day. Read that out loud. Your first day in heaven.
My first day in heaven. I dreamed death came the other night, and heaven's gate swung open wide. With kindly grace, an angel ushered me inside.
Yeah.
And there, to my astonishment, stood folks I'd known on earth. Some I judged of little worth. Indignant words rose to my lips, but never were set free. Every face showed stunned surprise, 'cause those independent didn't expect me. Think about learning how to write.
Read that.
My appetite is my problem.
It's
I
the
always
23rd pound.
23rd
23rd
pound. Oh, 23rd pound.
Yeah.
This is a testimony, Geraldine?
Yeah.
For yours. That's your testimony. Read it.
You wrote it.
Read it.
My appetite is my problem. I always want. It maketh me to sit down and stuff myself. It leadeth me in the paths of McDonald's for a cheese quarter pounder. It destroyeth my shape.
Amen.
I love you, Brother Hyles. Yea, though I know if I gaineth, I will not stop eating. For the food tasteth good. The Reese's peanut butter cups, they comfort me. When the table is spread before me, it exciteth me. For I knoweth that soon I shall dig in. As my plate filleth continually, my clothes runneth smaller. Surely
Amen.
bulges and excess weight shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will be fat forever. I love you, Brother Hyles. Brother Hyles, I love you.
I love you.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Yeah, that's my testimony.
You're trying to get out of it. But you're not.
I want you to read it.
Would you believe 7 years this time?
Well, I need some new jokes anyhow.
No, we love you. I'm so glad you're a man of God that can have fun with the people and with us.
You're just hoping I have a good sense of humor, that's all.
And we really do love you and appreciate you and thank you for letting us come to
We enjoyed
pastor's
you very much.
school this year. And I want to share in
By the way,
closing-
Ricky looks sharp today.
Oh, did-
Yeah, I wore it again 'cause you said I look good.
You do look good.
And sir, I promise I'm gonna get a haircut.
When?
Yeah, in the morning
in the
What
morning.
morning?
or tonight when I leave here.
You're going to get a haircut.
I'll get a haircut and I'll look real good.
So you can
And
go to
I'm
Hyles
gonna
Anderson
get a
College.
donut haircut like you.
Yeah, I understand that.
And then I can go to the greatest college in all the world.
That's right.
Amen.
That's right.
I'm gonna look sharp, do my best, and do what God would have me do. Amen.
Amen.
And you know what, Dr. Hyles, really, we love giving you a hard time, but you really are the greatest.
Yes, you
Thank
are.
you.
And I want, as Missy Lane just softly plays, Dr. Hyles, you know, I love to hear your sermon that gives me food for thought, that makes me sit and ponder over the message that you brought. I love to hear the meaning you give and the meaning I receive as you search through the scripture and you tell us what you believe. I love to hear a sermon that's preached from God's holy word divine that tells me of a Savior
who could save a soul like mine. And I like to hear a sermon that's preached to please the Lord, that tells of faults we should erase and how we should live in sweet accord. For if a sermon doesn't make me want to be a better me, then I've missed this blessed lesson from Jesus of Galilee.
And I want to say, God bless the churches everywhere that praise thy name begone. Bless the preachers and the teachers that are good and true and fine. Bless all of the churches with a deep desire to know the real true plan of salvation that thy holy word can show. And bless all of the churches, large or small. 'Tis no matter their riches or fame, for a church without our master is only a church by name.
And wherever there is a gathering, and praises be given our Lord, and faith and prayer are prevalent, and hearts are all in one accord, then there's a great place of worship. Though temple or building be small, if God can be found at each meeting, then it's the greatest church of them all.
And you know, we were teasing you about the 23rd town, but you know what I love? The 23rd Psalm.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord is my shepherd, protection. I shall not want supply. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures abundant. He leadeth me beside the still waters peace. He restoreth my soul healing. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake, purpose. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death experience, I will fear no evil confidence, for thou art with me. Omnipresence. Woo! I like that.
Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me.
Instruction.
Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemy.
Provision.
Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over.
Joy.
Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life.
Assurance.
And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Heaven.
And I'm glad to testify, Dr. Hyles, that if something happened in my life, I would spend eternity in heaven. And how my heart, once again, has been so motivated to just be the soul winner that God would have me be. Go where he'd have me go, do what he'd have me do, and be what he would have me be. And I praise God that he wants to take each and every one of us in this place today and use us in a special way. And I like that old song, Follow Me, and that's my heart's desire, is to follow the Lord. I traveled down a lonely road, and no one seemed to care. The burden on my weary back had bowed me to despair. I oft complained to Jesus how folks were treating me, and then I heard him say so tenderly, my feet were all so weary upon the Calvary road. The cross became so heavy, I fell beneath Just take your cross and follow close to me.
And Dr. Hyles, we want to help you carry that cross. Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. And I always, Ricky, there comes a time when you have to say goodbye, and we do want to thank you for everything.
I've got something I want to give you.
Oh,
You may take your angel with you as you go.
Do you like my angel?
It's not exactly what I had in mind.
Oh, you got a fallen angel. Uh-oh.
How about Brother Eddie bringing the suitcase out real quick again?
Shame.
Real quick, Brother Eddie, are you close by? Let's.
Oh, no, not again. I'm beginning to get irrigated with that. No.
Ricky, we have to go.
Well, Dr. Hyles, do you love me? I love you.
Could I think about that a little while, Ricky?
I really love you, and I'd do anything for you.
Sure, I know this doesn't
Well,
make all the
you
things
know, but really, no, wait. Hey, wait a minute. I'm in the middle of a conversation. This is business. No.
No, Ricky, listen. We have to go, so you go ahead and tell Dr. Hyles goodbye.
Goodbye, Ricky.
No, wait. Oh, look at my little pony.
Oh.
You want to ride it? No, wait a minute. No, wait. Johnny, wait. No, wait. I want to go. I don't want to get in. I want to stay. I don't want to get in.
Ricky, listen. I hate to do this.
When you did that,
How
when
can
my
you do
mother
it?
was alive, my mother got so mad at
She
you.
did.
Oh,
Yeah.
she was furious that you.
Yeah,
And she'd
it-
talk about it for days after you left.
Did she?
She really would.
It reminded her when she used to do it to you.
Okay, Geraldine, put him in there. I don't care. A hand for Geraldine. All right, you can be seated. We'll take a few minutes in case you have any question you'd like to ask about anything. You may do so now. We just a very few minutes, okay?
What is the basic difference between your teaching on the bride yesterday, the Baptist position, and the traditional bride of Christ?
The only difference in my teaching on the bride of Christ is, and the traditional, well, I don't think there is a traditional teaching, but your non-denominational teaching is that we will not become the bride until the rapture. That's my opinion. We're not the bride of Christ now. You don't not a bride, you get married. The the thing I'm shooting at mainly is not the bride question. I'm shooting at the body question mainly, and the church question mainly. The bride of Christ doesn't bother me a great deal. That's not a practical thing. People argue all day about who is the bride of Christ. That's not the practical thing. The practical thing is that the church is his body, and there's only one church right now. Actually, what it amounts to is I would believe the universal church people that just hold off the word church to the rapture, hold off the word bride to the rapture. But all those times the word bride is mentioned in the Bible, only one time the word bride is mentioned in the New Testament until after the rapture, and that's John 3:29. At no other place in the New Testament is the word bride even mentioned until after the rapture. The Baptist bride teaching says that only Baptists will be the bride. I don't believe. I think a lot of Baptists are not going to be in the bride. But of course that's sort of silly. The bride and groom situation is a figure of speech. God is trying to show us how much He loves us, and we get wrapped up in we get wrapped up in the wedding procedure up in the sky. Well, who gives a flip if you're looking at Jesus with you, the bride, the best man, the groom? That's all silly. It's all conjecture and speculation. I'm interested in teaching the things that are practical. You see, that's why I say that all believers. I stress all believers aren't the church. I don't stress all believers aren't the bride. I say that, but don't stress it, because it has no practical help. Dr. Rice used to say to me so often, I said, Dr. Rice, I said, there's so many preachers in America that can preach better than I can. Why do you use me? See, I mean, he chose me, and look, while he and I were traveling together, the greatest preachers in the world were alive. He chose me. And I said, why? He said, because every sermon you preach has a hook in it. What he meant was, every sermon I preach, there's something a fellow can decide to do when I get through. And so the doctrine of the bride of Christ has no hook in it. The doctrine of the church has a hook in it. So if a fellow's wrong on the church, he's hurting the unit of battle. Okay, I'm going to take about 13 minutes and have a little question and answer time. And we do it every Sunday night here. And maybe there's something you'd just like to ask. Yes, sir. Yeah, but I'm not going to dogmatically say that. That has no hook in it. I said it yesterday. I said this is sort of what I think, but I wouldn't. I cannot prove what I said yesterday to even my own satisfaction about that. I personally believe that when a person's born, he's a child of Adam. I think when he see the devil's a religious creature. The devil wants you religious. The devil knows that if you're just a son of Adam, you're one step from being saved. If you can be religious, you're two steps from being saved. So I sort of think you're born in this family, but I wouldn't argue about that. And this is not arguing time. This is for you to something you'd like to know that maybe I can help you with. You have a question for me? Do you have a question? This is not forum time, it's question time. Okay?
I was just wondering if there's a book you would recommend that gives us sort of an overview of how we got our Bible, but still holds up the King James.
Yes, I could recommend a lot of them, but I'm not going to, because I don't want you to believe that the King James is preserved because you can be proved. I want you to believe it by faith. That's what Mama did. Say God gave it to us. I'd say. See, if you've got to have it to your satisfaction, traced down and everything, then that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the very simple. There's got to be some book that has the words of God. Now, if you want to take, I've got more respect for a person that says the American Standard are the very words of God than the person that says we don't have them. I don't think it is, but say we don't have them, then you have no words of God. Get the logic on the King James Bible. You'll get the whole thing. Okay. Now use it for your last one, too. Uh-huh. Yes, ma'am. Real loud. I'm sorry. I can't hear you. I'm not hard of hearing. I just don't hear well. But I cannot hear you at all. Mixed dating. What? Oh, mixed bathing. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, we can't give illustrations. But if you'll ask me a question, I'll answer it. I'm not interested. We're not interested in everybody telling about our families. Just ask me a question. I don't. I'm not going to answer the question. You'll write me and I'll answer you. I'm not going to answer in front of America that question. But if you'll write me, I'll be more than happy to answer you. Well, then have them write me. Okay? The reclaim the name meetings, not yet. We have them. We have them not. We have them tentatively set for about 2 years in advance, but we don't have them all confirmed yet. Are you wanting to ask a question, sir? Uh-huh. I'm sorry, I can't let you read the Bible to me. If you have a question, ask me a question. Okay, I just said you can't read the Bible. So who has another question? Uh-huh. A person get what? Get to know me personally? You wouldn't like it. There's no way. They're very. I just don't have time. I really don't. I do the best I. By the way, that leads to a pretty good question. I do everything I can to get my people to feel like they know me personally. The question answer time on Sunday night does a lot for my people to feel like they know me personally. Then homespun illustrations. If you use illustrations in your, like last night, Jack Trevor's illustration about his boy wanting the football uniform. I was a little disappointed that he has a son that didn't want spiritual things, but you know, every single person in this room went shopping with Jack Treber last night. The word is identification. I feel like I know his boy better now. And he took us shopping with him. These fill-ins for, they call themselves professors, who say don't use personal illustrations. They're crazy. They're crazy. I mean, that's the way you get folks to identify with you. And they learn to, then they feel like they know you personally. That's so important, so very important, that your people feel they know you. Most of the people in this church, I've never shaken their hand, and I can't. You imagine this thing being packed in jam with extra chairs in here, say on a Sunday night. These folks can't get to know me personally. I've got to do everything I can to let these people feel like they personally know Brother Hyles. All right? Somebody else. Uh-huh. Say it again. The last two words I didn't hear. Should a number 3 preacher preach in number 2 church? Under what circumstances? It wouldn't bother me if you're the number 3 preacher. Just don't have a lot of number 2 preachers in your church. That's all. It's not a compromise. or break down a biblical separation if every time, all the time. Now, if you preach if it's a new evangelical number 2 church, you shouldn't do it. But there's some number 2 churches that are not new evangelical. They're not Baptist, and I wouldn't be opposed. But every man's got to decide for himself. For example, I will not preach in a Southern Baptist church. Now, I don't think that's sinful. When I was Southern Baptist, John Rice and Bob Jones Sr. preached for me. And better preachers than I preach in Southern Baptist churches. I don't. 3 reasons. One is, young preachers look to me for leadership and they want to see consistency. Number 2, I don't want to hurt anybody's church, and if I went to a church like that, I might hurt the church. And number 3, I've got more invitations than I can ever begin to accept, so I'd rather accept the ones where I can help the people that I think are going to do the job right. Yes. Lordship salvation says that you have to accept Jesus as your Savior and make him the Lord of your life before you're saved. It does not mean that you have to believe that he is the Lord. It means that you accept him as your Savior and as your Lord, and that you've got to make him Lord of your life. Now, I think, and you'll see this in my book on salvation, I think that the motive for this is a healthy one. I think a lot of folks have gotten so tired of Christians that are worldly. They just decide they're going to go around telling who's lost and who's saved. And I think it comes from despair. But that's what Lordship salvation is. That's what I mean when I say Lordship salvation. I'm not going to get in a conflict with other men who are not in this room and call their names about doctrine. You're not going to get John Rice and out of us. I can't hear you now. A while ago I heard you. What's your question? I'm so sorry. Your voice, I heard you well a while ago, but I can't hear you now. Just ask me a quick question. The church began sometime during the earthly ministry of Jesus, and John Rice believes that. And the church didn't begin on Pentecost. There's nothing in the Bible that says it did. But I do not exactly know when it began. Personally, I lean toward Matthew chapter 10 when he called out the disciples. That's what I lean toward. But I know it was sometime before Matthew 18 because they already had it there then. But I'm going to tell you something. Before you go, Dr. Rice believed an awful lot, mighty close to what I believe in the church. We would have had some bit of difference, but I never told him. I never told him because I loved him too much. But he was a lot more my way than he was a non-denominational way. But the question I think you asked a while ago is why do we believe wrong on the church? It's what I said yesterday, the influence of the number 2 group, which got theirs from the Catholic. It's a Catholic influence, come down through Protestants and down through non-denominational people and over to Baptists. And I sound sort of mean about it, and I'm not blasting the number 2 people I'm not blasting Universal Church people. I'm blasting the Baptist people for taking it. All right? Real loud. Anyway, you can what? What's your question? Are you saying, do we accept blind students in the Hyles Anderson College? Do you know if we have any blind students? How's that? Have we ever had any questions? If you'll write me, I'll answer you. I promise. I'm very sorry I don't know the answer. My first thought is we do, but I know we have somebody that's almost blind. But please write me. All right? Instead of what? Yes, sir. We're working on a Christian museum right now. We do have plans to open a Christian museum. Uh-huh. No, sir. We've not set any goals for the nationwide Pentecost Sunday. We have not started planning for that yet. We just started our spring program last Sunday. Uh-huh. How what? I heard everything except you tailed off the last 3 words. I didn't hear the last 3 words. I didn't say there was a denomination. I don't believe in denominations. I don't believe in the Baptist denomination. I don't belong to a denomination. Don't believe in them. Think they're unscriptural. Don't think anybody ought to belong to one. That's our name. Like Hyles is my name. We're Baptists. We baptize. They named us. We didn't name ourselves. They named us. They called us the rebaptizers, then dropped that, called us the baptizers. And we don't. But that's the name. It's no denomination. We don't have a denomination. Jesus never started a denomination. I don't think anybody will belong to one. Now, if you belong to one, I'm not mad at you, but you'd be better off if you got out of it. I don't think we have any of these Bible conferences planned in Canada. I don't think so. Yes, sir. Say it. Boy, if you'd say everything loud as you said, Dr. Hyles, I'd hear you. Elaine, Elaine, you're not Elaine, are you? Did you hear him, Bob? He couldn't hear you either. Have some lady tell us what you said. Why did Group 3 go to Group 2? I don't know of any. Liberty didn't go to Group 2. They went to Group 0. They're not non-denominational. No, they're still Baptists in name. Okay, I'm sorry. I can't get time to hear about your vacation. There are no plans for Hyles Anderson College to go in the secular field of training. None at all. We realize that we can't compete in enrollment with Bob Jones University or Pensacola, but I'd be surprised if we didn't have 10 times as many preacher boys in our school as either one of those. We think all young people in our fundamental churches ought to be in full-time work, and we don't slander folks or not, but no, Hyles Anderson College will not, in my lifetime, as long as I'm sane, will not go into the training of people for secular vocation. I've watched it all over America. The preacher boys become the fanatics on campus. Everybody looks down on the preacher boys. Here, everybody looks up the preacher boy. Okay. Thought I saw some hands. Yes, sir. Beg your pardon? I was Southern Baptist as a youngster. Went to I went to East Texas Baptist College and Southwestern Seminary, Southern Baptist Schools. And I was always a renegade, but I had never heard of the fundamental movement. Didn't know about it. I grew up 30 miles from J. Frank Norris. Never knew he existed. I heard him cursed a few times, but I knew nothing about it. I thought you're a Southern Baptist or nothing. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Well, we have not planned to do so, but if you want to work on it, you could let us know. I don't think we would do it. Talk to Brother Hernandez about it. Yes, sir. To Iraq? No. If we can get rid of Hussein, we need to rebuild Iraq. Now don't jump down my throat yet. We have got to keep the balance of power in the Middle East. We only have one real friend in the Middle East, and that's Israel. You see, so Iran is just as much a threat as Iraq is without Saddam Hussein. So we have got to keep it in the Middle East so nobody has the balance of power, has the power. You know what I'm trying to say? A few years ago, Iran and Ayatollah, that was our problem. And we needed a strong Iraq. Now when Saddam Hussein became our problem, we needed a strong Iran. So the only hope we've got in the Middle East, as I see it, and I'm not an expert on this, but as I see it, the only hope we got in the Middle East is to keep those nations pretty equal to each other. In case one of them acts up, the others, plus we'll have some who will at least be our friends enough where we can knock the fire out of the other one. And that comes from a man that doesn't know what he's talking about. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I can't let you read the Bible to me because folks can't hear you. All right? That's a good question. What he's saying is, if you start a new church, how can you keep your people from believing the notes in the Schofield Bible about the church? Is that right? Is that what you're saying? Remind them constantly they're not true. I don't know how many times I say to my people, Mr. Schofield says this, but Mr. Schofield's wrong on this. You know what you got to do? You got to keep reminding people of everybody's infallibility, everybody not being infallible. You have to remind them that Mr. Schofield, this is just a Bible. And you got to keep your people more followers of you than Mr. Schofield. So that's what's happened. Churches all across the country are having trouble with the Awanas now. People say, because the Awanas change Bibles. You know that, don't you? And people say, well, but they've gone back to the old one. Well, you forgive me. But I wouldn't want to date anybody that divorced his wife, married another, and then decided to go back to the first one. The fact that they would leave is all I need. And the only reason they went back was for money. So, okay, one more question, that'll be all. Where are you? All right? I know you're right there. Where's right there? While you're saying that, would you like the organ to play with you? I mean, I'll answer both your questions. Yours first, then yours. That'll be all, huh? What should be our our attitude toward ministry is outside the local church? I didn't hear the last line. I heard you say, what should be our ministry? I thank God our people can talk better than you guys can. Say it again. Now, to say it the same volume is not going to help. Turn it up. You didn't ask me a question. I'd have to take the organization one at a time. I cannot give a blanket answer to what I think about all organizations that are not started by a local church. And I'm not trying to get you to think that. I'm trying to get you to keep your church local. That's all I'm trying to get you to do. All right, down here, this is the last one. Do I have any plans for what? I could not answer that. David Gibbs is a fellow who's working mostly on the schedule, and he and I worked together on it the other day, and I approved it, everything, but he has the schedule. I don't have the schedule, so I don't know about it. All right. This morning, we're going to take some time, and I think you're going to like this, and I think this may help you. It won't be spectacular, but I think this may help you more than most anything all week long. Now, when I tell you what it is, don't yawn and say, oh boy. But I've asked the men on my staff and one lady, my secretary, to come out this morning and to give you every duty that's theirs. I think this is going to help you. I think you'll get a lot of ideas this morning. And we're going to spend the entire morning on it. And the first person is going to be my secretary, Irma McKinney. If one of us has to die first, it better be me. This church could keep going better without me than it could without her, because this gal is somebody. To work for me is not easy, but I've never seen her anything but calm. I've never seen her, heard her raise her voice. Her husband, they've been married for 40 some odd years. He told me he had never heard her raise her voice one time, and she's that kind of a lady, and never says I can't do it, just anything. And this is the ultimate in church secretaries. She's not just a secretary. I call her my administrative assistant, but she's going to tell you her duties. I think this will really help you if you'll listen carefully. If you want to take some notes, go ahead. But I think if you listen carefully, you're going to go home and say, maybe I got more real help on Friday than the other time. Irma?
Thank you. First of all, may I say how honored we are that you have come to be with us this week. And we feel like it's been a good week. I hope you do too. First, before I talk about the duties that I have, please understand that I am allowed to get some help from 3 other ladies according to how many hours a week they can give me. So here we go. First of all, I accumulate the preacher's mail to give to him, and he sees his own mail. Using his pocket memo dictating machine, he answers some of the letters. Then some correspondence is such that I can answer it for him, but of course following his direction. I am in charge of his correspondence files. In my office are files that contain the deeds and information and so forth of every piece of property that our church owns. And then according to the county schedule, we have to file exemption on each one of these pieces of property. When telephone calls come for Brother Hyles while he is out of town or away from the phone on other appointments, I take down telephone messages for him. We've determined how to get emergency messages as well as callbacks to him. Then there are messages from him to others. that he personally cannot get to, and so I can either phone these messages to people or write them to them. I perform duties that are connected with having special guests here at the church come to sing or speak, contact them with the invitation from Brother Hyles, make the motel reservations, learn their travel arrangements, notify the church host concerning their arrival time, their schedule while they're here, and so forth. I write a letter of greeting from Brother Hyles for them so that the host has that letter to present to the guests upon their arrival. And then learn from Brother Hyles what hospitality to extend to them while they're here, what to put into their motel room, and so forth. And into their motel room usually goes flowers and candy and nuts and maybe a little gift. Then there are certain days on the church chapel schedule when Brother Hyles fills out-of-town preachers with them. And I send invitations, therefore, to these speakers whom Brother Hyles invites to come, usually phoning them first to check with them their schedule and a date when they might have open that we have open on the schedule, and then getting a letter of confirmation to them and synchronizing with the college the chapel speaker schedule. I type letters of greeting from Brother Hyles to the guests, then work with the host at the college, making arrangements for them, meeting them at the airport, and so forth. In the preacher's Sunday school class, he has special music each Sunday, and I line up that special music for him. Now, ahead of time, we did draw up a list and got approval of which groups he would like to have in his class, and then notify him on Friday what singing group will be in his class on Sunday. I've already notified Mrs. Colston as to which group is coming because we need to synchronize also so that I'm not using the same people that she will be using later on in the services. Also, she works with the PA men, setting up the microphones and so forth, and they need to know what microphones will be required for the groups that are coming to sing for Brother Hyles' class. I prepare announcements for the pulpit for the public services, all, of course, according to the pastor's instruction and his approval for these announcements. Our schools often have announcements that they wish to have read in the public services, and they send the announcements to me ahead of time so that I can tell Brother Hyles what announcements I'm going to put up there in addition to the usual ones or special ones that he has asked for. He hears the announcement ahead of time and knows what's going to be announced from the pulpit. I'm in my office after every service, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and Wednesday evening to assist in any way that I can while Brother Hyles is seeing people. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the fact that members of our church come by to see Brother Hyles after many services, perhaps to ask a quick question, perhaps to ask for an appointment so that a longer period of time can be given them. The group of members is divided so that on Sunday morning, Brother Hyles sees all non-college people, and Sunday evening, the college men, and Wednesday evening, the college ladies. I'm there in my office while he's seeing people because there are some who say, I'd like to make an appointment, and so I can put down that appointment request to get to him later, so that when he works with his appointment calendar, he then can set down that appointment. And there are other things that arise, needs and things that we need to look into for the people, and so make a note of that and can do that for him later or ask him direction on it later. I work with couples who are setting wedding dates. The couples have already seen Brother Hyles to get approval for their wedding, either for him or for some other pastor here on the staff to perform the wedding. And then keep a current record of dates when the church auditorium or the chapel or the fellowship hall are being used on Friday evenings and Saturday afternoons, the times when we have weddings here. Along with the Friday evenings and Saturday afternoons when Brother Hyles could not perform a wedding. So it takes careful synchronization to be sure that we don't have a conflict, and it has happened, I'm sorry to say, but we try the very best we can to have no conflict. We set the date. I send letters of confirmation along with a list of wedding instructions to each of the couple. I fill out a form giving all the pertinent information, the date, the time, the place, the couple's names and addresses and phone numbers when the wedding is going to be held, so that the custodians have a copy of when this wedding is going to be taking place. The nursery director has a copy. Mrs. Colston has a copy because she conducts the wedding rehearsals. Mrs. O'Brien gets a copy so that in the church office that can be entered on the calendar there. And then the director of the church ed class at the college likes to know so that college students can come and attend weddings. I'll have to tell you something funny. I got a phone call one day from a college student who said, "When are we going to have a funeral?" And I said, "Well, unless you're planning one, I'm not." He said, "I'm required to come to weddings and funerals." And I said, "Just listen and see when there's going to be one." Then give to Brother Hyles on Monday mornings tight memos concerning items that need to be cared for as a result of his seeing people after the services on Sunday. Or I know what to do in some matters and take care of that and then get a report back to him. Some male graduates of Hyles Anderson College, after they have been called to a place of service, come requesting ordination. I take those requests. Then just before deacon's meeting, I get to Brother Hyles a memo listing the requests of these men who would like to be ordained here. And whenever it's time then for the deacon's meeting, Brother Hyles takes that list to the deacons and gets their approval for this ordination. Then the deacons in turn bring the list to the church business meeting to get approval of the church. Then in my office we determine in what ordination service we can include the next ones on the list, call them to set up a date, send a follow-up letter, asking whatever questions would be helpful as we draw up the program for the ordination service. And then as the information comes, we get it to the church printing office so that they can make up the program for the ordination service. Once again, custodians and nursery workers and the college church ed class and the general secretary of the church need to know that this ordination service has been set. Then there are Bibles to order and flowers to order. There are ordination certificates to be filled out and get them signed by Brother Hyles and the deacon board chairman and the secretary of the board ahead of time. And then the evening of the ordination itself, we can pass around the certificate for a few remaining deacons to sign. Whenever Brother Hyles has time to work with his appointment calendar, he gives me appointment times that he assigns to the people who have requested appointments. Then I record the appointments in his appointment book and notify the people. At the morning staff prayer meeting with the preacher, I give him a memo listing the appointments that he has that I have in my appointment book. He has his nerve. He sets appointments that I don't know about sometimes. But I tell him what I know and give him a memo on that at the beginning of the day. There are many duties, of course, related to Brother Hyles' speaking engagements. I talk with and correspond with pastors to whom Brother Hyles is offering an open date in response to their invitation for him to go there. I keep the schedule of the offered dates and the confirmed dates. About 30 days before the scheduled date, I copy from the airline guides the schedule of flights to a certain place. Brother Hyles chooses the flights that fit his schedule here and there, and then work with the travel bureau setting the reservations. A few days before he's due to go, he sees again the reservation that he has made for his departure just to be sure that it still fits the schedule. Then I contact the pastor or the pastor's secretary of the church where he's going to give them the time of his arrival and learn where he'll be staying while he's there in case I need to reach him. Verify with the church his speaking schedule and also learn from them then if there's any change in that. I put some items with his airline ticket before he leaves, the card with the church's name and address on it, the list of sermons that he has preached within a 100-mile radius of the city where he's going, a card listing his speaking schedule there. In our first meeting then, after his return, I asked Brother Hyles the titles of the sermons that he has preached where he has just returned from. And then I also asked him the title of the sermon that he preached at the college chapel, so that we have a record in the office of the sermons he's preached everywhere. Then each spring I can perform some duties for the preacher with regard to the deacon election. He meets with men who have been nominated to be new deacons, but somebody needs to ask them to come to this meeting, and so we do that in my office. And but when we tell them that Brother Hyles would like to meet with them at a certain time in a certain place, we do not tell them what the meeting is about. They may ask, "What am I meeting with him for?" And our answer is, "He hasn't discussed that with us." And so they come to this meeting so that Brother Hyles has the first word with them. And then after that meeting, they fill out a card saying whether they are qualified to be a deacon and would like to run. He has discussed the qualifications with them in that meeting. There are also men whose terms are up for deacon. In that case, we send a letter from Brother Hyles to these men with a little card enclosed asking them if they will rerun for deacon and would they please mark their decision on this card and get it back to me, so that I can tell Brother Hyles a positive answer, tell him who will be running again. I write each week the elementary Sunday school lesson that goes along with the lesson outline that Brother Hyles has prepared for teachers junior age and up. Now, of course, we've been doing this for so many years that most of the lessons we can pull out now and repeat because it's such a vast cycle. But nevertheless, when I pull out each one, I do re-edit it, and perhaps a new introduction should be given to it, and so forth. Once in a great, great while, I need to write a new one, but not very often. And by the way, those lessons are written only for our use here. They're not written for publication at all. They're just written for our teachers here. And then make up the coloring sheet that the children take home. And I also write the Vacation Bible School materials each year and make up the coloring sheets for the elementary children on that and quiz sheets for the junior hires. And again, since we've done that for several years, I can repeat lessons. Once in a great while, I'll just get hit with an idea and ask Brother Hyles his approval for using that idea and give him a little outline, a little synopsis, and then write the lesson for a completely new set. After this has been done and the Vacation Bible School dates are approaching, then it's my privilege to work with the Bible school superintendents. We ask each superintendent of each department if she can take her department for Bible school and then get the materials to the superintendents. We hire here city policemen for each one of our public services who can roam the parking lots and check and see if the cars are protected. And they're paid in cash. So each week it's my responsibility to see to it that that cash is divided up, that the deacons have left to pay the policemen. We have special offerings here, and whenever it's a special offering for an outside ministry, I write that down, learn the amount of the offering, and then with the preacher's dictation and direction, write a letter to send with that check that's enclosed. I'm going to quickly tell you some things I don't do, and I think they're just as important as the things I do. Number one, I'm Brother Hyles' secretary, and I am no one else's secretary. I don't set Brother Hyles' appointment or speaking engagement schedule. He assigns the dates and the times. Every now and then a person comes up and says, or they call and say, "What does Brother Hyles think about? What would Brother Hyles do in this case? Well, I cannot speak for Brother Hyles. Write him or talk to him personally and learn the answer to that. I don't make any announcement that he should make. It's so exciting sometimes lining up special guests and seeing what the programs are going to be and so forth. And I could just go flying out of my office and say, guess what? So-and-so has confirmed they're going to come and they're going to be here, so-and-so and so. But that's not my announcement to make. It's his announcement to make. So I don't make any that he should make. I do not type his sermon outlines or his sermons before he preaches. I do not discuss his work with others. I do not answer questions of other staff members that need to be answered by the preacher. I am not a subordinate boss. Years ago, when I first started working out in the secular world, I saw in an office the president's secretary acting as the office manager. And it was easy for that to happen. Instead of people going to the president, they went to the secretary. And all of a sudden, she was the boss, and he wasn't. And I vowed I'd never let that happen. Brother Hyles is the boss here. He's the pastor. And so anything that he needs to answer and that he has not given me the answer to give, they are to go to him to get that answer. Now, when he calls in from out of town, and the staff member who has an immediate question that needs to be answered cannot be in the office at the time that he calls, I can have that message before me and say, so-and-so is asking, and may I give him the answer to this question? And I can relay that message or that question. It's the greatest work in the whole wide world. And sometimes when we approach the work, we think, oh, these are sort of mundane details, but it's God's work, and I'm certainly privileged to be a part of it. Thank you.
And now then, Brother Ray Young is going to come and tell you what he does. He's going to take about 30 seconds and tell you what he does. How he's going to get this in, I don't know, because this guy, you've never heard anything like this in your life. I promise you. So he's going to come and give you his duties and responsibilities.
My first job here at the church 16 years ago, Brother Vineyard hired me, paid me $2 an hour to pick up scrap metal off the ground at the bus center, and put it in a pickup truck and haul it to the junkyard and sell it. And that was my first job, and from there, many, many other duties have been added. All that I do here is because Brother Hyles has taught me how to do it, and he's been patient with me while I'm still trying to learn how to do what he's trying to teach me to do. Everything I oversee is something that Brother Hyles has built, and he just gives me the privilege of helping him to keep it going. So I'm just going to have to read most of this to you quickly. As he said, I'm going to be rushed a little bit to get it all in the next few minutes that I have. So much of this, I've spent about 5 hours this week writing all this out, and much of this I'm just going to have to read it to you. Number one, I oversee the B buses. There's 60 bus routes in the B bus ministry. It covers the north side of Chicago, Evanston, and Skokie. Then I oversee the C bus ministry. We have 41 buses in the C bus ministry, 41 routes. It covers the south side of Chicago, Blue Island, Cicero, Forest View, Berwyn, Stickney, and Summit. Those are suburbs of Chicago. I oversee the D bus ministry. That's 10 bus routes. Covers Maywood, Melrose Park, Stone Park, North Lake, Bensonville, Franklin Park, New Lenox, Joliet, Romeoville, Plainfield, Aurora, and Elgin. And then I oversee the G bus ministry. We just started this year. We have 3 routes so far. It covers the far south side of Chicago. It's 113 bus routes altogether. On those 113 routes, our high day so far has been a little over 14,000. This past Sunday, we had 10,300 on those buses. I'm responsible for recruiting and training and motivating all the workers in those bus ministries. I recruit and train and organize the division leaders. I have 12 division leaders. The bus captains, of course, I have 113. The drivers, we have a 4-month training program that all of our drivers have to go through. I set that program up. The state of Indiana helped us, and an assistant of mine and I, we oversee that training program. Every one of our drivers goes through a 4-month training program. And then I have 826 bus workers in the BCDG bus ministries, and I work with, I recruit and train all of them. Then I oversee not only the bus ministries, but the Sunday schools also. Now, not the Abe Sunday School, but that's Brother Hyles's. But I oversee the B, C, D, and G Sunday schools. We have 18 departments and superintendents. We have a little over 350 Sunday school teachers and workers. And I have 5 adult classes for the folks who ride the buses, and 1 adult church service that meets on Sunday afternoon. And then I have 9 junior churches and primary churches. I recruit the preacher for each one of those, and then I preach in a different one myself almost every Sunday. Then I work with the insurance for many of our vehicles. I work with the insurance for the bus ministry vehicles. Was about we probably average about 160 buses a Sunday. And then I work with the insurance for the college vehicles, the grade school, the high school, and the City Baptist vehicles, the deaf ministry vehicles, the sailor department, sailor ministry vehicles, the youth ministry vehicles, and the Spanish ministry vehicles. In fact, just yesterday morning while you were in here about 9 o'clock, I signed a new contract for a insurance policy yesterday. Then I oversee I'm in charge of baptism for all of the Sunday afternoons, Sunday schools and church services. We baptize in here on Sunday afternoon at 2:30 and again at 4 o'clock, and I'm in charge of those 2 baptismal services, getting all the workers, and I'm in charge of finding someone who's ordained to do the baptizing with Brother Hyles' approval, of course. Then next, I oversee the buses for the Vacation Bible School for the BCDG bus ministries. We run buses during Vacation Bible School in the summer, and I work with those. Then I oversee 3 weeks of camp every summer. For our junior age bus kids, we spend 3 weeks at camp with them. When I say I'm in charge of the camp, I don't mean we just take them to somebody else's camp. We don't do that with anything around here. We run our own camp. I run my own camp. I find a campground that's vacant for a week, and we rent their property from them. And so I have to find the camp itself and sign a contract for that, and then I raise the money for the kids to come. Brother Hyles raises a portion of it, and then I raise the rest of it from the workers and the parents. And then I recruit the drivers that take the kids to camp and back, and all the counselors and all the cooks and all the folks to clean up the kitchen, all the kitchen help and all that kind of stuff. And then I plan the week of camp, and then I'm there and I organize it and operate it, and then I organize and operate all the chapel services and preach in them for 3 weeks every summer. Then I negotiate all the lease contracts. See, we don't own our buses. We lease our buses for Sunday school. And to get enough buses, I have to use 9 different bus companies in this area. There's not any one company that has enough buses available on Sunday that they'll lease to me. So I lease buses from 9 different companies. And each company, I have to go to that company, sell them on the idea of leasing their bus to us and letting me put my driver in their vehicle. So after I sell them on the idea, then I have to negotiate a contract with them and then renegotiate it every year. And I have 9 different companies I work with like that. Then I preach in our chapel services here in our ministries. I mean at the junior high, the high school, City Baptist, and at Hyles Anderson College. Then I oversee City Baptist High School. We call it City Baptist. Well, this year we've changed the name. We call it City Baptist Schools. There's a City Baptist grade school that's 3rd grade through 6th grade, and then there's City Baptist Junior High School, which of course is 7th through 12th. And I oversee that school. I have to negotiate the leasing or the purchasing of the buses. We own a couple of buses for the school. The church doesn't own any, but the school owns a couple. And then I lease some others, or run 5 buses a day at City Baptist. Plus, I have to find and hire all the employees for City Baptist. I have 22 employees there. I have 67 full-time employees in all the ministries I work with totally that work with me. 67 paid employees, and then I have a little over 1,000 volunteer workers that work with me in all the different ministries I work with. But at City Baptist, I hire all the employees there. I drew up the class schedule at City Baptist. I drew up the curriculum at City Baptist over a period of a few years when I first took over about 8 years ago. I plan and organize and conduct a week of faculty and staff orientation every year in August right before school starts. I go down and spend a week there with the teachers and conduct an orientation for a week. Then I approve all the textbooks for City Baptist. I approve all the chapel speakers, and of course, after I approve them, then Brother Hyles does. That's true in everything. I wouldn't have to say that over and over as I go through this. He approves everything. Then I raise the money for the tuition for City Baptist. And then I draw up and personally oversee the budget at City Baptist. And for our budgets, not only Brother Hyles approves them, but the deacon board does too. But I draw it up, and then I oversee it, operate it throughout the year. In fact, I oversee 16 different budgets here in the church and schools with a combined annual income of $2.9 million a year that I oversee those different budgets. Okay, then next, I've been either directly or indirectly in charge of all of our big days here at the church for the last 4 or 5 years. For example, last year, Pentecost Sunday, I did not have much to do with the Pentecost Sunday except that Brother Hyles asked me to just organize the thing. And so I got all the ministries together, and I've told you about that a lot this week already. But then maybe a couple of years before that, when we had our 100th anniversary here at the church, we were having a big day. And we were having Sunday schools not only here on this property, but Sunday schools all over the area. And that day we had 125,000 in Sunday school with 18,000 people saved. Now those 18,000 did not all walk an aisle here in this building. Many of them did. Hundreds of them did. Probably 1,000 or so. I'm not sure how many. But 18,000 saved altogether. And I've been helping Brother Hyles coordinate those kind of big days for the last 4 or 5 years. Next, I teach 2 classes at Hyles Anderson College. I teach one class. It meets 2 hours a week, has about 100 students in it. It's called the Concentrated Evangelism class, where we teach evangelism, of course. And then I oversee and share in the teaching of the church education class. That's the class for the preacher boys. It has about 600 students in it. And I draw up the schedule for that class, and I do half of the teaching. Brother Scott does the other half. And then I oversee the attendance and the requirements and all the grading for that class. Then I have many duties here during pastor school every year. For example, the program you saw Monday when you registered down in the fellowship hall, the little Western program, I helped put that together. The decorating of the big tent where you went across the street and you ate the barbecued sandwich and had something to drink, and the chuck wagon was in there and so forth. I was in charge of decorating that tent and in charge of the serving you the meal there, the barbecue sandwich and so forth. And then I worked with all the crowd control around here on Monday, getting all the different crowds where they're supposed to go. Then the greeters that were here every morning this week, the cowboys that greeted you every morning at your car door and welcomed you, I'm in charge of all of those fellas each year. And then the washing of your car windows for you all week, this week, I've worked with that. All of the ushers here in the auditorium that you've seen this week, selling the books and passing things out, I'm in charge of all those fellas. Everybody that you saw come across the platform Tuesday morning that was here in the program for the bus ministry, I was in charge of all of that. Every lunch you've eaten this week, I was overseeing all the lunches being fixed and so forth. So if you got a stomach ache, don't blame me. I didn't plan the menu. I just organized the thing. And this is my 9th time to speak this week in pastor school. I speak a few times every year. Then those are basically my church duties. Then in addition to my church duties, I'm also the executive vice president of Hyles Anderson College. And there's no way in the next 10 minutes or so I could describe to you all that I do at Hyles Anderson College. So I'll just simply say 2 things. Number one, preacher has to some extent divided some of the duties at the college, and preacher personally is in charge of some portions of the college. Of course, he's in charge of all of it and approves everything, as I've said so many times. But Dr. Evans oversees one portion of the college directly, and then preacher directly oversees another portion of the college. The part of the college that Dr. Evans is in charge of, I help him oversee all of that part of the college. I'm not greatly involved in it on a daily basis, except that I attend every meeting or service that he conducts at the college, every business meeting, every chapel service and so forth that he conducts. I attend it so that when he's out of town preaching, or if he's ill, he has a disease that he suffers from, and sometimes it strikes him just unexpectedly, and he can't be at work for a period of time. For a few hours I'm talking about. I don't mean for days. And so anytime he's not on the property, then I step in and become what preacher calls his substitute, and I conduct his staff meetings for him and his chapel services and all of those type things. That's one thing I do at the college. Then the other thing I do at the college, everything that preacher's in charge of at the college, since he's here at the church or out of town, I'm there on site at the college about 50% of my time. I spend about 50% of my time at the college on the property there, and I spend about 50% of my time here on this property. About 45% of my time here on this property and about 5% of my time at City Baptist. I do a lot of my City Baptist work here on this property since it's just down the street. The principal comes up and meets with me and we work on it. But preacher's half of the college that he's in charge of, I'm on site and I operate his portion of the college for him on a daily basis and coordinate and liaison for him. In that portion of the college, I oversee these departments: the security department, the host program. That's the fellas at the door that checks people as they come in and out to make sure that only the appropriate people are on the campus. We protect our girls on the campus by not letting strangers in and so forth. And so I'm in charge of that program. Then the work scholarship program, about 500 students are involved in that. The building and maintenance department, the yearbook, the grounds department, the bus garage, the transportation department, the dining hall, the Peddler's Way, which is our campus store, the Liberty Square, which is our campus snack shop, our janitorial and custodial departments, I oversee those. Our AmeriCall program, which is a telemarketing program that hires our girls to work for them there on the campus. There's about 100 girls involved in that, and I oversee that. The telephone system includes 150-something telephones and 2 switchboards. I work with that. The campus post office, the public relations department, the student insurance, the workman's compensation, the vehicle insurance, and that's a different insurance policy than the one I mentioned earlier for the buses, and the outside printing. We have one print shop there on the property. I'm not in charge of that, but the other printing that we do away from the property, I oversee that. I attend or conduct 35 staff meetings or organizational meetings or teaching or preaching sessions a week here in our ministries when I'm in town. That does not count in addition to that when I go out of town to speak. Then there's more, but 35 the days that I'm here in town. Plus, I have a minimum of 17 personal appointments a week in addition to the organizational meetings and appointments. And then, in addition to that, I have a minimum of 17 personal appointments every week, basically with folks who work with me or under me. Then this is not a church duty, but I won't even mention that because it's not a church duty. But anyway, then another thing I do is I plan and host all of Preacher's trips, where he sends folks out of town for winning a contest. For example, Monday, for his spring program and fall program, he often has a trip where folks win the contest and go on a trip. And when he does, I usually plan those trips and host those. Monday morning, I'm leaving with 47 people at 6 o'clock Monday morning on a 6-day trip. We're going to St. Louis, Oklahoma City, Dallas, Marshall, Texas, and then back here the following Saturday. Those trips usually last anywhere from 2 to 6 days, and the one I leave on Monday will be the 16th trip I've hosted in the last 10 years. And then in addition to these duties, I travel and preach around the country some. In the past 12 months, I've been on 21 trips from Maryland to Los Angeles, preaching and teaching on the bus ministry and stuff. Preacher gives the fellows that work here on the church staff 12 trips a year for 2-day trips, 12 a year where we can go out of town and preach. And then he lets us locally, if we can work all day and then leave after work one afternoon and drive 2 or 3 hours and preach somewhere some evening and then drive back home the same night, he lets us do as many of those as we want to. So I had my 12 out-of-town trips last year, then some others, 21 altogether. Some of those local trips, of course, are all week, except Wednesday night. I'll go 4 or 5 nights a week, there and back every night, preaching in different churches in the area. Now, I know someone will say, boy, I wish I had the organizational ability to get all my work done. You could have organizational ability if you'd get up early enough, if you'd put in enough hours, and if you'd be willing to spend enough time alone, you could get a lot more done. See, I average getting up at 4 o'clock every morning. Some mornings I'm up at 3:30 and occasionally even at 3:15. It's amazing how many organizational ideas, as folks call them, that I get about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. When everything's quiet, nobody's bothering me. It's amazing how many of those kind of thoughts come to me. I want to just quickly, I have about 2 minutes, and I want to quickly tell you a story, and I'll be done. After I'd been on the church payroll for about 5 years, and a couple of those years was here on the church staff. First 3, I worked at the bus garage for Brother Vineyard, and then a couple of years here at the church on the staff. We decided we wanted to have a big day in the bus ministry. Our goal was 12,000. That was going to set a new record, and so, make a long story short, we had that day 12,996. And the day went great and smooth, and everything worked perfect. We got all the kids back home, and I planned everything right down to the T, and everything was right on schedule, except I made one mistake. I forgot to get my buses and workers back to the evening service. That night, I ran 186 buses that day and 4 or 5 workers on every bus, so I had hundreds of workers. And that day, that evening, the very first bus got back here that night at 8:15. Church starts at 7. The last bus came in at 12:30 that night. Not the night bus, that's Sunday morning Sunday school bus. The last one got in at 12:30 that night. We walked out for the evening service. The bottom floor was sparsely filled. There were 2 sections in the balcony, had absolutely nobody sitting in them, because I had hundreds of workers, and usually it's packed, extra chairs every Sunday night. I had hundreds and hundreds of workers on buses all over Chicago. To put it mildly, Brother Hyles began to rip my face off. I thought. He stood up here and he threw a big fit and he said, "This will never happen again. You'll never see this happen again. As long as I'm pastor here, we'll never have another big day where the buses stay out on Sunday night and folks miss church. Church is important, and this will never happen again. And I promise you folks that are sitting out there, you can count on me. I'll never let it happen again." I thought he was ripping my face off. I found out later what he was doing was he was protecting me from 2,000 or 3,000 people that would have liked to have murdered me that night because I ruined their church service. By the time church ended, I had folks coming up and putting their arm around me saying, "God bless you, buddy, you'll make it." The following Saturday night, I went to his office to meet with him. Brother Moffat and I were meeting Saturday nights back then for the bus ministry meeting. We walked in, to say the least, I was trembling. He said, "Fellas, how you doing?" I thought, "Do you have to ask?" He said, "You want something to drink? Have a seat." I thought, yeah, he's fattening me up for the kill. He said, "Okay, you got any questions?" And we started our meeting. We had a very kind, cordial meeting, just as we always do. By about 20 minutes later, I began to relax some, and the meeting was about over now, and I thought, wow, I'm going to get away with it. Suddenly he said, "Well, Ray, I guess we need to discuss last Sunday night, don't you think?" I thought, no, I don't see any need to. He very kindly explained to me why what I did was not appropriate. I said, "Preacher, can I say a word in my own defense?" He said, "Of course, go right ahead." And he let me say all I wanted to say. And then he very kindly explained to me why, even with what I thought, I was doing right, it still had been better to do it this other way. And then he dismissed Brother Moffat, and he said to me as I started out the door, he said, "Oh, by the way, Ray, here's an address. My family and I were living in a little apartment over on the north side of Hammond." He said, "I want you to drive by this house tonight on the way home and look at it and see if it's what you might like. I'm going to ask the church to buy it for you next week."
All right. You leave my staff members alone, too, by the way. I'll kill every one of you. All right, be seated, please. Yeah, what a delight it's been this week to have Johnny and Nelda with us. They've added an awful lot to our pastor school. This is the last time you'll hear them. So let's welcome them, shall we?
Well, folks, it's good to be here. I'm telling you, it's folks here from everywhere. It's amazing. You know, that little boy said, "Mama, where was I born?" She said, "Oh, here in Texas." I said, "Where was Sister born?" Now, she's born up in Nebraska. He said, "Well, where was you and Dad born?" I said, "Well, Dad's born in Phoenix, Arizona. I was born in Iowa." He said, "Well, isn't it strange how we all got together?" It's strange how we all got together, folks, and my feelings has been hurt again today. Nelda is wanting to buy a suitcase to carry me in. And then to add to that, Brother Paul Burke, he said they don't make suitcases that big. And said, besides that, Nelda, you couldn't carry it. So I'm just being hurt all over. And then besides, who'd have thought coming up here, brother? Who'd ever thought that Brother Hyles would kick me and break my clamp? Yeah. You know what you did, brother? Y'all didn't get that. He broke my clamp last night. And the night before that, he kicked me, didn't he? While Brother David Gibbs is here, I might ought to sue you, brother. Nah, I just cut that. I want to sing a song the Lord gave me. It wasn't too long ago that I just knew the Lord was through with us. I didn't see no way to keep going. And then I got to thinking, shoot, I'm doing what the Lord wants me to do, and I know He's going to do something. So the Lord gave me this thought and gave me this song. Lord, I go ahead and thank You now for what You're going to do, 'cause it's going to be something rare. Here I am again by the hair of my chin, trying my best to hang in there. Sure as a thunder, I'm about to go under, and it don't look like a fun thing. So I'll go ahead and thank You now for what You're going to do, 'cause I know that You're going to do something. Lord, I'll go ahead and thank You now for what You're going to do, 'cause You've done it time and again. When I thought for sure that I couldn't endure, and this time was really the end. For one reason or another, You were closer than a brother, and I guess I was that one thing. So I'll go ahead and thank You now for what You're going to do, 'cause I know that You're going to do something. I've heard it said 1,000 times, we never learn from history. Must have been talking about some folks of mine that sure weren't talking about me. I've come to my end so many times, and I remember, Lord, how You've done things. So I'll go ahead and thank You now for what You're going to do, 'cause I know that You're going to do something. Well, I'll go ahead and thank You now for what You're going to do, 'cause I know it's about to happen. You gave me seed to sow and You told me to go, but look, Lord, I'm facing a mountain. But this I know, it's to make me grow, for that's the way You run things. So I'll go ahead and thank You now for what You're going to do, 'cause I know that You're going to do something. And folks, He always does. But every time I get to thinking, well, He's not going to do it this time, but He always does. Amazing, amazing. Well, folks, this is one of those songs I wrote. The Lord didn't give me. Nah, He might have given me this one. This is a true song, though. Boy, I tell you, see, we quit farming in 1962. We had a little boy that was, I guess he's a year old. And we went out into this work, and the Lord's blessed it. But see, I don't know what I'd do without such a good banker. His name is Charlie. That's a funny little name, isn't it? Charlie. But I got this song that says, now we left the farm in 72. Me and my wife, small son too, was called to sing in the local New Testament church. I had a lot of faith, but sense enough to know that I had to have money in order to go, so I knew I'd have to find me a banker first. So the very next day I drove uptown. It wasn't no time until I'd found me a real friendly banker by the name of Charlie. I signed my name, he loaned me enough for a new guitar and nailed us some snuff. I'm sorry. I knew I'd do that someday. I signed my name, he loaned me enough for a new guitar, PA and stuff. So we left town just happy that we found Charlie. We drove one way, 500 miles. I'd pick and sing, my wife would smile. My son sold 2 cassettes, 1 8-track. The very next day, returning home, I was going to buy groceries and pay on the loan, but we didn't have enough money to get us back. My wife began to cry and pray. She looked at me and said, honey, hey, the offering didn't cover expenses hardly. Well, I drove along happy as could be. I said, now, Lord, it's all right with me, but sure gonna be rough on Charlie. It went this way a few years or so. I'd cry to Charlie for a little more dough, but never could pay him back at the end of the months. But I knew then things work together for good to them that love the Lord the way they should. I sure hope Charlie loved the Lord a bunch. My son got scared and joined the Marines. Said this beats all he'd ever seen. Said, you're going to get Charlie fired, Dad, no joke. Well, I guess it did look scary to him with Charlie away out on the limb. Said he wasn't going to be around when that thing broke. Now I hear that Charlie had to leave the bank. It's all my fault, I'll always think. He's feeding swine now on some hog farm. I drive by in my brand new van. I wave at Charlie, he waves his hand, looks real sad and goes back to shoveling corn. I said, now come on, Charlie, don't be blue. I'd still be farming if it weren't for you. Don't let this thing get you down this way. And let's never allow some little hog pen to bring our friendship to an end. After all, Charlie, I got you where you are today. But I don't think he appreciates it. Well, I want to go ahead and sing this other song. Now, folks, I know I probably don't sound just right today because Nelda woke up with a cold. Did you get that? No. Geraldine and Ricky? But I want to sing this song the Lord gave. It kind of goes along with those other songs. See, folks, it wasn't for the Lord's grace. Boy, I just couldn't make it. Boy, the other day, the highway patrolman stopped me for speeding. I said, well, the sign there says 75. He said, oh, that's the interstate number. And he went back there to get my tag number, and I told Nelda, I said, man, I'm glad he didn't see us on Highway 101. Man, I was moving on. Yeah. And, but we'll go ahead and sing this song, even if I don't sound right. And folks, I want you to know you all have been a blessing to us. In fact, y'all have been a shot in the arm. Y'all made us feel like traveling on. Yeah? So the Lord gave me this song one time. Here comes Jesus with his grace again, just about the time I need it. Makes me feel so very ill to think how I mistreated. Every time I think I find him at my journey's end, or pull a boner and should be a goner there, Jesus with his grace again. Woe is me, too blind to see what Satan had in his pocket. That little thing was a ball and chain on me. He tried to lock it, and I hate to admit it, but he almost did it. I was up to here in sin. He was doing well with me until you know who dropped in. Yes, there came Jesus with his grace again, just about the time I need it. Makes me feel so very ill to think how I mistreated. Every time I think I find him at my journey's end, or pull a boner and should be a goner there, Jesus with his grace again. Down and out, oh how I pout, I feel so all forsaken. Some little sin I let creep in has got my heart to aching. Old Satan is a-crying, there's no need trying, God's blessings you will never win. But as before I answer my door, there's Jesus with his grace again. Yes, there comes Jesus with his grace again, just about the time I need it. Makes me feel so very ill to think how I mistreated. Every time I think I find him at my journey's end, or pull a boner and should be a goner there, Jesus with his grace again. Thank you. God bless you, Brother Hyles.
All right, be seated, please. Let me tell you, pretty close to what time we're going to end today. We're going to end, we'll give it a fit to get you to your cars sometime between 1 and 1:30. I feel sure we will. We're going to let out a little earlier than usual, and so I want you to know that. Let me just make an observation about the staff situation. I do not expect all of my people to love me most. I tell my folks this. There are people in this church that love Brother Young more than they love me, and that doesn't bother me a bit. There are hundreds of people in this church that love Brother Colston more than they love me. He's the man that works with the sick and has most of the funerals. And because of that, there are hundreds of people that love Brother Colston more than they love me, and that doesn't bother me a bit either. I just ask my folks to love me. I don't care where I am on the list, as long as I'm on the list. That's all I ask. And I certainly want to share my people with my staff. I don't have to be number one. In fact, I'm not sure I'm number one with anybody. And that doesn't bother me, because I have the kind of men that are no threat to me at all. And I just feel like that much of our staff problems are needless. If, as I said the other day, if fellowship will yield to leadership, then if leadership will in turn be gracious to fellowship, and if neither will expect the other to do the other's part, it'll eliminate most of our problems. I have a unique and different feeling toward each one of our staff members. I have a special feeling toward Brother Young. I also have a special feeling toward Brother Roy Moffitt. Brother Moffitt, I've told you about him already. I'm proud of him. He's homegrown. This guy has probably grown more than anybody on my staff. I mean, from where he had to come from to where he is now. He was, young people back here, y'all behave now. He was an insecure man, and inferiority complex, and he's come to being one of the finest workers and one of the finest friends I have. He's going to tell you about his responsibilities on the staff.
Well, I've been working on the staff now for 18 years, and it really seems like it's been just a few years. It's been a great opportunity to think that I have had the opportunity to work with what I consider the greatest preacher in all the world. All I do, I feel like I'm just one of the tools here at First Baptist Church to help hold the arms up of my preacher. He's one that does all the work around here, and he gives us some extra responsibilities to oversee things. And I feel like I have one of the greatest jobs in the world, folks. I work with some great people. You know, we get credit for it, but they're the ones that do all the work. I'm in charge of having spring programs. I'm in charge of having fall programs. I'm in charge of motivating my people and having sermons and lessons and teaching how-tos and so on and so forth. But when we finish those meetings, they're the ones that are out there knocking on doors and inviting bus kids to come to church and so on and so forth. And my responsibility is just to try to keep things organized in the different ministries that I work with. But I tell you, for the opportunities that I've had here, it's beyond my comprehension. I have a preacher here that has put some confidence in a guy that I'm overwhelmed by it, and I mean that. I really mean that. I work with the A-Bus Ministry. This is a great bus ministry. This is the original bus ministry of First Baptist Church. These are the laymen. These are the folks. These are deacons. These are folks that you just don't get up there and say, hey, listen, if you don't do this, you know, you're going to do that, and I'm going to give you this or whatever. I can't do that with these folks. You have to deal with them a little bit different. You know, you have a deacon that may want to do something, and you tell him that you don't want him to do it. You may have a battle on your hands. So you have a different situation dealing with some of these folks. But again, I work with my workers in the bus ministry. If I get a new bus worker, I'll teach and train these folks. I'll go out on visitation with them. In our bus meetings, we have bus meetings every Wednesday night. In those meetings, we'll go over some of the promotions, some of the things that they need to know, some of the do's and the don'ts, some of the things that I hear in our staff meetings. We have staff meetings every Wednesday after. We'll have a teacher's meeting, and then we'll have a superintendent's meeting, and I go to that superintendent's meeting, and in that particular meeting, I may hear something about, Roy, I understand some of your buses came in past 9:30 Sunday. Preacher, the reason is there was a train out front, and that train broke down. It was out there for 20 minutes. Oh, okay. You know, I just got a report that there were some buses late, so I have to answer to the buses coming in on time, which is an extremely important thing. One of the responsibilities, I oversee the drivers, and many of the things you would realize go with a bus director. I oversee what vehicles we do own. The bus ministry does not own vehicles, but some of our special ministries do. And so I have a mechanic, a fellow by the name of Rick Suba. I oversee all the work that he does. Our deaf ministry owns buses and minibuses, or minivans, and I oversee the maintenance of that and just basically oversee the work that Brother Rick Suba does. Something that's a lot of fun, that's part of the bus ministry, and this is Vacation Bible School. I've been involved now going back 18 years. When Brother Jim Vineyard was here, when I first started working at the bus garage, Brother Hyles called to the bus office and said, had somebody call there and said, Brother Hyles would like to see you at the church. I got there, and the big request at that time was, Brother Hyles would like for you to be the devil. I am the dirty, rotten, stinking, no good for nothing, rotten, smelly troublemaker of Vacation Bible School, and I have been that troublemaker for the last 18 years. It fits my personality well. I love the job. I get to cause problems for a preacher. I come up to the microphone and I say nasty and terrible and horrible things before Vacation Bible School even starts. I'll come up to the microphone and all the kids will be in here and I'll say, today I'm going to cause trouble in Vacation Bible School. And all these kids, they'll scream and holler, and then Brother Hyles will walk out as if nothing happened. And I may mess up the platform and so on and so forth. Well, that's one responsibility that only time I don't like that responsibility is when I go around those little kids and they're scared of that dirty, no good for nothing devil. But another responsibility I have is working with a Sunday school class. This class, it's called a Friendly Couples class. It's like my little church within this great big church. It's an opportunity to teach these folks, counsel with them. When you have a couples class, you're going to have problems, and you get to counsel with these people. We have a regular class visitation. We have division leaders that go out. I oversee that. I oversee the prospects. We have class activities. We do different things in our class activities. We'll go on special trips. Some things that the people really enjoy, we'll do them on a yearly basis. We'll always have some type of a family get together where all the people in their families and some of their relatives will have a special activity at a park where it'll be a smorgasbord type deal and a cookout. There's, again, I could go on a lot of the different types of activities that we have. The class itself is a type of class that the people really do grow around the Sunday school teacher, because a lot of my life is invested in them. If they're having problems, I'll go by and see them. If they're having problems, I'll see them after church. And this is a fun responsibility, just the teaching and the training and working with these folks. I also have a good opportunity of teaching at Hyles Anderson College. I teach the bus ministry course at Hyles Anderson College. We teach all the way from the beginning of the bus ministry, when to start a bus ministry, all the way to the mechanics of the bus ministry, talking about painting buses, talking about leasing buses compared to owning your own buses. A lot of our buses are leased. Fact is, most of our buses are leased. And some churches, that's much better. It depends on how much you lease the buses for. So that's one of the classes that I really enjoy, because of a lot of these folks are going to be out. They're going to be out there in the fields teaching and training a lot that they hear in that class. I also work with the Fishermen's Club. The Fishermen's Club at First Baptist Church, Brother Scott works with one group. I work with another group. These fellas are a lot of fun. It's kind of like a group of guys getting together. And the first few minutes is just a fellowship time. When we eat our breakfast and all, it's just a fun time, poking fun at the guys, each other. It's just a free time when we're eating. Once we start our meetings, we just go through a series of different things, sharing blessings and testimonies and teaching and so on. I also work with our jail ministry. The jail ministry, you heard a little bit about it yesterday. I shared with you some of the blessings. Those guys and those ladies that are in that jail ministry, they love those people. They really do. And all I have to do is just meet with them and send them out, really. But we do have a sharing time in those meetings also. A rest home ministry, as far as overseeing, I oversee at least 35 different rest homes that we go to on Sundays. We go to other rest homes on Saturday, and we also, in fact, I have some ladies right now that are in some rest homes at this minute as I'm talking. We have folks that go and they have actual meetings in those rest homes, teaching, and for the men they have preaching, and then they will have soul winning time. Well, what I do is I train our people, teach them how to have a meeting, teach them what to say, teach them sometimes subjects and so on and so forth. So that's a great ministry to people that are somewhat forgotten. Those people in rest homes, a lot of them are placed there by the family. They didn't want to go there in the first place, and they don't have people to come by and visit them. That's a ministry that I can encourage people to get involved in. We have the project ministry that I oversee. That is a ministry that goes up to the Chicago project areas in Gary and Chicago Heights into the all-black areas. And we'll actually get a facility, and in that facility we will have a meeting. A lot of times I'll try to secure a building, secure maybe a cafeteria or some place that's not used for a particular day, maybe a Saturday or Sunday, ask them if we could use it for special meetings and inform them a little bit about the meetings that we have, and then I will line somebody up to take that particular meeting. The truck driver ministry, Brother Mike Harris, is the one that really had a burden for this ministry about 4 years ago. He was doing it on his own. I mean, that guy was bringing people in and bringing converts almost every week. And one particular day, Mike talked to me, and he said, Brother Moffat, I'm doing this somewhat independent of First Baptist Church, and I wanted to know if I could get it under the umbrella of First Baptist Church. And I says, well, I'll be glad to bring it up to Brother Hyles. And Brother Hyles had always recognized those guys. And so I says, Preacher Mike Harris is wanting to know if he could be under the umbrella of First Baptist Church in our outreach ministry for the truck driver ministry. And, Preacher says, sure, that's a great ministry. I'd love to have that. And since it's been under the umbrella of First Baptist Church, it is growing. We have more men involved. We have more truck stops now. And we have people that are asking now, how do you get into the truck stop ministry? What are you doing? How do you get these meetings started? And so on. So it's a ministry that I can see is probably one of our faster growing ministries in First Baptist Church. I also work with the ladies' neighborhood soul winning program. I mentioned that to you, that it's a visitation program in a particular community where some of these folks work or live. We have the hospital visitation that I do. Brother Colson does most of the hospital visitation here at First Baptist Church, but I do that also, and that's a blessing. I myself, I try to go there and bring a little bit of joy to the life of these folks there in the hospital. And sometimes some of the spirit of some of the folks, they bring a lot of joy to me. And just the way you see somebody suffering, and you may go there and pray for them, and they end up praying for you, and you finish praying for them, and you're really uplifted. I do also travel conferences, speaking mostly for the bus ministry, Sunday school departments. I also am in charge of conference transportation, like this particular transportation. I preach into different schools. We have different schools that we have our high school and grade school, and I have the opportunity to preach there. Candle Lord Soul Winning Club, that's a group that is out soul winning right now. We meet every Friday. We meet at 9 o'clock. We have a little breakfast, and after the breakfast we'll have a sharing time and a teaching time, a training time, and then they will go out door to door and go into the rest homes, and some for the new birth, and so on and so forth. Now, my responsibility is to find prospects for these people, because for some folks they feel much more comfortable with prospects, and it is an inn if you go there and you have the name of the people. Hi, Mr. Stevens, and you go there and mention whatever the particular reason you're there.